So welcome to the Wednesday, March 11th, 2026 FoodOn Curation call, and we're focusing on MIFC terminology. I just wanted to finish last week's discussion before moving on. And so this should be pretty quick, Kai. So, um, so what I have is I'll screen share here. I have a draw IO diagram that will cover our work on these things, and I'll set up a tab as we go for the different terminology areas. So I went and took a look again at FoodOn versus um, MIFC and the idea of adding cheese ripening of kinds to it, and also taking a look and realizing that the plant ontology actually has some fruit development stages mentioned in it already. Um, FoodOn has over here in our fruit ripeness qualities of things. Meanwhile, the plant ontology has a fruit ripening stage. So the actual process, they're naming the stages of this. So one could say that each characteristic that we have references one of their ripening stages, but then they have things like a complete ripening stage, which doesn't quite fit our food um, categories. So, um, anyway, suffice to say, I think what I realized was that for our fruit ripeness characteristic, we can't mix this term with the some kind of cheese, some kind of gradation for cheese. And the reason is these things are talking about entities which are the output of a plant um, physiology process. So it's very different from the cheese ripeness and the reuse of the word. It's basically a homonym. The ripe cheese word is a homonym. It has different senses and different applications. So what I recommend is that if people want FoodOn to have a cheese ripening terminology, that we actually add that as a new term and some new menu selections. What that also means is that we might have a collision between ripe fruit and ripe cheese. So therefore, we should probably add fruit, the word fruit, to each of these things. So what do you guys think about that? Um,
Damien, I have a question.
yeah.
Is there a difference in between ripeness as a food processing uh, description and then as a state prescription? Because yeah, there's a ripe fruit as in it's ready for picking and consumption versus ripeness as a point in time within a process that's industrial in nature.
Yeah, so maybe we don't have any terms about that second sense you just mentioned. Um, we just have this plant ripe.
But Damien, just we discussed last week about the stage versus quality or characteristic first, and
Yeah.
then I have the same question as Robert because I'm wondering what is really the difference between a state and a stage,
Mhm.
and also think I thought that we can apply ripened to cheese and ripe to fruit, but was not aware of the plant ontology. And also, I guess that overripe for fruits, at least, and it is not in plant ontology.
What isn't in plant ontology?
Overripe.
Overripe. Well, they talk about late.
Ah, late. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
I just condensed their men.
Late ripening stage.
Yeah.
What is mean? What does this mean? Does it mean that it is not so early as usual?
The late stage of fruit ripening. So they're not. really saying very closely in what they mean. So I don't actually know.
There's no textual definition.
This is the definition. Um, so maybe this ISBN document reference might have something.
Magali, is in your mind, is there a difference between overripe and rotten?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a difference between, but we discussed last week about the fact that we can't define an optimal ripeness because it depends on the consumer's taste or preference or so on.
No.
So, but I guess that overripe is more than ripe, more than optimal,
Yeah.
but
Well,
difficult to say without knowing the context.
yeah, I think given that the plant ontology is being general about their vocabulary, I feel comfortable that we have one step removed these words, and I think we should be more specific about what they're talking about to make space uh,
Other cheese.
for other things. So this would mean that we introduce a food material ripeness, and then
Okay.
underneath that we can have a cheese ripeness and so on.
But just about the question, state versus stage or
Yeah,
character. We discussed this last week, but perhaps you can repeat
stage
for,
is definitely process oriented.
yes.
So whatever
It is a
biology,
time, a time interval.
and it has a beginning and ending time interval. Yeah. Um, whereas these characteristics would be things a little bit more on the organoleptic side, and they would be you know, in state-based description, you can have a characteristic apply to a whole state. So I guess we would say a
It's more
slightly
a
different
state. Hmm.
characteristic applies to the well, I don't even know if it lines up well with the plant ontology, but um, it would align with some phase of one of these processes.
But for my ontology transformation, I will prefer to have some characteristics because I have this already in my attributes branch, and this is more
Mm.
or less like quality or characteristics.
Yeah, and I would agree with you there. So we'll keep these terms as characteristics and not
Hmm.
as processes or phases. Um, and uh, I haven't seen fault in the somewhat slippery, somewhat loose definitions of these, but I wouldn't add anything more to them.
Perfect.
Okay.
I have just changed the word for my because it was my definition, and I change stage for characteristic now, so it is okay.
Okay.
Just I will not. I think that I have to think if I add the term fruit or not
Hmm.
from my side, but that's a question. And also for cheese, I think that we can have ripened cheese and not ripe cheese. I don't know if in English you say ripe cheese.
Hmm. Okay.
I guess it is ripened.
I'm gonna just put can other people can they weigh in on that? Ripen or is ripe?
Anyway, we have cheese ripening, but I think we use ripened cheese.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would say it's ripened cheese because
That's
Yes.
right.
Mm,
Okay.
no.
That kind of
So it makes a distinction with fruit already, but I don't know if it is clear enough to say just ripened
definitely I
versus
want
ripe.
to add the material because what I'm remembering is now these imply that a certain process is involved. So
Mm,
we're not mixing up the processes here that these things are talking about.
okay.
Okay, any other questions about that? Um, I think it'll keep Ido happy as well from last week, his comments. Okay, so
Yes, because just to complete this point, Ido say that we can't say that a cheese is overripe
Right,
to answer to Robert Ferris, because we can say this for a fruit, but perhaps not for a cheese.
right. Yeah. So we don't even know if there's another state besides ripened, maybe unripened, but he was
Yes, that is unripened,
okay.
or fresh cheese, or
Fresh.
unripe, fresh.
Um, okay. Uh, so I'll wait till later to make this a pull request issue type thing. Um, okay. I'll leave a note about that in the docs later. Chat. Right. Late. Yes. Okay. So moving back to the spreadsheet, um, Kai, we have a whole swath of things to dive into.
Yeah, I would say maybe the preservation states.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe just like to me, I don't know, the most fresh, raw, right? There's a few things that it would just be great to get community feedback on. I'm not okay, it's not like USDA has defined it as far as I know, and it's not like, there's one going to be one definition. It would just be great to spend a little time with the really basic ones like raw
Hmm.
and fresh and just see if there's anything that needs to be done. I know that this work has previously FoodOn has done some good work with this before, so it would be great to just kind of finish that out, flush it out, and figure out possible permutations. Like, is raw enough? Is there different versions of raw? Is that helpful? That can help inform the MIFC standard. Then it can also be used in whatever transform on anything RIVM or others do. So I think that would
Yes,
be a good place to start.
it's a great idea, because that's the basis, and distinguish between fresh and raw, for example, and unprocessed versus, because raw can mean unprocessed, or can mean unheated, uncooked. I don't know. So
Right, exactly.
we
I think there's
already
probably a lot of
discussed this. Yes.
Yeah, so it'd be great to discuss that. From my perspective, that would be great to define those things and discuss it and see if there's more permutations on fresh, raw, raw, fresh, uncooked, raw. If there like needs to be 15 terms there, maybe five or six. I don't know. So I think that would be good to unpack and have a look at what we already have there and then continue that discussion. For me, that would be the most
Mm.
helpful thing for the MyFC standard, but also for the community, right? Because again, this is stuff that would go in food on and that transform on and others like MyFC could use. But it's primarily here, this is focusing on the food on definition, which my FC can just use. So that's enough for me. I'll hand it back to you guys.
Yes, I'm totally with you. And so
Can we
let's
define raw water just to have fun too?
right.
Fresh water.
Just as an aside, then Warren, Envo does make a distinction between liquid water and ice, solid. So,
And me too, in my ontology.
dude,
I think it's quite normal to have the both form of water.
good. Okay, so this invites a bit of a poke around to see what we've done so far in terms of fresh and raw. Um, and so let me locate some of that material. So let's just spend 10 minutes at least roving around here. And it will mean going into FoodOn, going into a spreadsheet where we're comparing these things with other systems, and the diagram here. So starting with the diagram. Um, so we have the characteristic of raw, and then we actually have the material, the food material. And so one thing that seems to be is that the word raw only applies to food materials, if I'm not mistaken. So we have a food material, a food raw at the moment in food on, and food fresh is a subcategory of raw. there's this thing called thawed food, which was previously frozen, and you can freeze food and have it as a fresh food that's frozen, as in other words, not cooked. So then you can go from food which is fresh frozen to thawed food which is raw. So there's a bit of a hop around that we still hang on to these words like raw and fresh, and then they die at some point in the processing. So I am expecting that the definitions that we have can handle those things. And of course, it's the fact that for every material with that has gone through these processes, you can also have the characteristic, perhaps, that names it. So that's where another comment would be then that we can be dealing with characteristics which are immediately observable, such as that something is fresh or raw. And then there's some things like thawed which might yield a raw food, but we would maybe never know that something was thawed, like tuna, unless we
Well,
were.
just but even raw itself, like there could be a lot of different definitions of raw itself,
Mhm.
right? Like different standard organizations, like this is it's not a USDA project, but like clean raw standard defined in some ways what raw was. It was a project that Whole Foods and others put together. So there's just a lot of different ways of doing this. So it would be great to have just even raw itself, like what is that, what what can we look at the food on definition of raw itself to start
But
there?
yes, but from what you have from what you have in mind, do you think that raw is more or less meaning that it is uneaten or unprocessed or both?
Well, right, exactly. That's the definite. That's the discussion is like because different people are going to have, and it might be different in different countries too. So maybe the U.S. version of raw might be different than what in France you consider raw. Right? Like maybe like the French standard, it's like nothing is. Just as an example, like nothing heated at
But
all.
I think it can apply to uneaten or uncooked or unprocessed. Let's say that anyway, cooking and eating are processing. And so if we say unprocessed, we cover all the cases.
That might be a good solution. Damien, what do we have now?
Yeah, let's find out. So this is
Uh,
a spreadsheet that we
yeah.
started a few years ago, and it did become useful in that food characteristics paper that's on hold at the moment. We went and took a look at uh, these definitions showing up as processes, as materials, and as characteristics. So that was interesting because the different standards out there were sort of oscillating between uh, these terms as verbs, adjectives, or material nouns. So let's start with raw material, food on definition, a material which has not had plant processes applied to it that affect its biochemical composition other than storage or aging.
Hello.
Hey,
Hey,
Sarah.
Sarah, we
Oh, great. So just to say that at least from PTFI perspective, we do label things as both raw and dried. So sometimes they can have like two characteristics. So in that case, dried is processed. But I think if we're going like raw is unprocessed, then I don't know. We could also maybe change the way that we're doing things.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it shows it shows up. So at the moment, Food On has a dried food category and a dried raw category, and now a dried raw characteristic. Um,
And so then do we consider drying processing?
I think that's so. Okay, so let's back to this sheet. Here we are. Uh, Here we are mentioning a planned process. Okay. So planned process is one that has intentionality. Human beings are involved, and it's different from a biological process that would occur naturally. So um, plant processes can take advantage of biological processes. So for fermentation, for example, can be a natural process. And a plant process is controlling that fermentation, giving it a start and a stop, and giving it food. So raw material, when it comes to drying, I mean, a lot of our agricultural processes involve letting stuff dry in the field. I think we would say at the point of harvest, that was a raw food still. So, well, the way I thought maybe initially we could handle it is that we acknowledge that uh, dried drying, a natural drying process, or maybe even an intentional drying process, mirroring a natural drying process, would still be allowed to be
Raw.
word raw, a kind of rawness.
I agree with that. Um, I think that gets back to our defining of raw though as
Mm,
not processed. It's gonna
right.
be tricky.
So we should go through these definitions and try to poke holes in them in the food on front. But let's go and take a look now at what some of the other.
Just to complete the point about the drying, I
Mhm.
would say that you have natural drying, that is natural dehydration process, biological process, and other drying that are plant process. And I think that we can say that drying is like an aging process because you mentioned aging in the raw definition. A natural drying, let's say,
Yeah,
natural dehydration process.
right. Okay. Uh,
And also we have the decay question.
a DK? What?
You mentioned in the raw definition in the Google spreadsheet,
Hmm.
you have to mention we allow storage or aging. And
Yes.
I think we discussed also about a decay process as
Oh, decaying.
decaying, sorry, decaying process.
Right. So, so, um, right. All of these are allowed.
Yes, because decaying would be opposed to fresh,
That's right.
and also aging will be opposed to fresh.
Right. Okay. Yeah, let's add that.
Right, because you could have something that's raw, but it's also old and
Yes,
not, yeah.
that's it.
That's right. So, so I'll just drop
And old and young could also apply to cheese, by the way.
old cheese and young cheese. Okay.
Yes, because we discussed about
I don't
last
mind
week
dancing around here,
my
just
cheese.
making sure we hang on to these little things. So old cheese. Yeah, aged. Aged. So is aged different from ripened?
I think it's if it is aged, it is ripened, but we could have both characteristics.
Yeah. And so,
Old and young and fresh and ripened could be applied to cheese.
okay. All right. Well, that does illustrate the collision of the semantics on these. So hopefully, maybe somebody else can take a crack at defining those categories if and when we need to. You know, geez.
But yeah,
Uh,
let's go back to the definition. Like, yeah, that's important. But let's look
yeah.
at raw and like the
Yep.
different definitions we have for it, not get side. Or it would be awesome for me if we could just focus on this one issue.
We're going to. No worries, Guy. We're there. So, okay. So, comment.
We are focused.
Are.
Don't mind, we are focused.
Let's see. Where did I just? Oh, lost it. Go. Comment. Ah, why am I losing my comment field? Oh yeah. Okay. Uh, okay, so now um, there's two jumps we could do here. We can either go and take a look at what fresh means, or we can just park that for a moment and let's go take a look at the other um, people who've defined this. Okay, so Anisha notes EFSAs, unprocessed. The raw food has not been subject to treatments or has been subject to such a treatment that the domain specific characteristics are expected to be unchanged. And so they're using this domain specific characteristics. And I I understand that, but it's so vague that I don't know if it really means anything. People get to make up what it means.
Yes, I agree that we have to specify what it means. That does not change the nature of because it's vague. I
Yeah.
agree.
Okay. So, all right. So what this is saying is, so actually, it's saying that there is not a raw material per se in EFSA's FoodX2, but I can put this comment here over.
See, there is a raw primary. There is the notion of raw product, but you can have a look.
Is there? Okay. Maybe
Yes,
we could
but
use, if you find a definition there that's different.
yes, I can find
There's
it here.
also one from the USDA National Agricultural Library, which is a different group than the one I'm working with, but they also have a definition.
Okay. Um, hit, if you could look that up, that would be great.
Yeah, I have it here. I can, do you want me to put it in that document, Damien?
Or in the chat, I can
Yeah, I'll
put.
put it in the chat. Okay, great. So yeah, this is again, this is not the group that I'm affiliated with, but they have a thesaurus, which is it's not bad. I mean, it's not perfect, but it has an IRI and it has a definition, so that's nice because we can link to that.
Okay, great. So now I totally welcome now. It's so
That's like the closest thing to a USDA definition.
yeah.
And the FDA probably has one too. We see if we can find that.
Well,
Or the Code of Federal Regulations, which is, I don't know if that's actually FDA or not, but it's the thing that FDA and USDA use.
right. So this sheet, I think we did comb through FDA to see. So if there isn't an entry here, then it may be under a process or so let's see. So yeah, so here's some definitions for some FDA things. Ah, right, here it is. So FDA definition. It's gonna close this up for a moment. Mm.
Huh, that's interesting that they're saying not transported.
Oh,
I'm curious where, because like there's a lot of FDA isn't just one united thing, right? There's a lot of sub agencies and different places where that might have come from. It'd be nice to know if we had a like where that might have come from.
mm-hmm. I'm a bit surprised. Uh,
I hope it wasn't me that put that in the past. Wait, what's the link on the FDA definition above? There's a link in your spreadsheet.
yeah.
PCB, product code builder. Okay, yeah, I think I've run into this once before. It's some sort of
Yeah, they have this. Um, here.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. So we have at least a link to where someone's putting it out. Is not stored or transported, refrigerated or frozen. Interesting.
Yeah, right.
So if you refrigerate, according to this, if you refrigerate it, it's no longer raw.
Yeah, that really is dubious to me. So I think so here, just this is a great example of how we might try to employ sensu. Um, we can put this definition into FoodOn, but we would put it in as a subclass of raw,
Mhm. Right.
and we would say raw in brackets sensu FDA, which I'm quite happy to do to show that you can incorporate other people's more specific senses of words.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that would be a good example here because then you can link to this one, you can link to the NAL one, and then some of the other ones that you had.
Okay.
Does INRA or RIVM have definitions for raw,
Yeah. So we'll get there.
idly or Ito?
I'm going to do raw sensu in brackets sensu FDA as just a note doing that. Okay, so back to this. Right, so then they do raw, fresh, refrigerated. Oh, it's not exclusive. Right, so what's for them a hierarchy with it's not even a hierarchy, it's flat. And so now they have these other distinctions. Raw, fresh, frozen. Yes. So that's motivating that other food on term we're looking at.
And it's like what you use in PTFI, I guess we have raw, dried also. So
Yes.
both.
We also do the raw, I think frozen. We have some other processing terms. I think frozen might be one of them. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, that checks
Because
out.
definitely you can have something raw, which is frozen,
Yeah.
and it is fresh frozen, or
Like the good example here of the shrimp,
mm,
uh, raw and frozen fresh, meaning that you still have to cook the shrimp to be like from a food safety perspective, like cooked, edible, ready for consumption.
but it is if it is cooked, it is not fresh.
Oh, right, right, right. No, I'm saying in line D, it's fresh frozen shrimp is the example. So it is raw, not cooked.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I do remember looking at these terms and trying to create food on compatible ones, but we don't at the moment cross-reference. I don't think food on cross-references. Maybe I do just set. Uh,
Damien, just to add one thing, I think that I believe the food characteristic paper which we worked on, it has a more updated information. And I remember that also had this raw fresh thing and
okay.
all these, yeah, just in case if you want to look at that as well.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I know that this work had been started, so if we can pick something up back up.
Yeah, because since that's a place where we actually added this work and then discussed and redefined these definitions further.
Hey, thank you.
If you search fresh, then you can also see raw, fresh, and other definitions for that.
In the table, yes.
Goodness.
Thank you, Anusha, because it was a long
Yeah.
time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been
but still fresh.
there we go. Right. Okay, concentration and hydration. Interesting. Okay. So, right. So for other people on the line, Pato is in the obofoundry family of ontologies. Pato is the one we try to draw characteristic terms from. So a number of these foodon characteristics about like raw and fresh might actually end up in Pato. Uh, but so here we have foodon dried and dehydrated, naturally dried, and then we have okay, not the fresh right there. So it's in another section
I
where,
think that's on page 18.
okay,
I just checked. Yeah.
cold, frozen, temperature. Oh, I see, temperature, fresh, frozen. Gotcha. Okay, 18, huh? Okay, here we go. Ah, so this looks newer.
And so we can add uneaten also as a child of, I know, I don't know, because we have unpasteurized.
Unheated.
Don't know.
Uh-huh. Okay.
We can have uncooked and uneaten.
Yeah, definitely. Um, can you put that just into the Google Doc
Yeah.
call log?
Which one?
Yeah,
The other one.
all our discussions, it helps to pop uh, in this food on curation doc or
Yes. Okay.
in the spreadsheet. But this curation doc is probably the best place to keep our
Okay.
thoughts focused for this.
To note discussion. Okay.
Okay.
Can do that.
Um, all right, so I'm looking at this definition of raw, and it's interesting because it has all this hydrated organism business. I'm And so dried, it seems there was an effort in the past to separate out this version of raw from the hydration side, which was up here. So I'm not sure that was a good step. Um, I think we can still have dried raw and not exclude this and not be in a problem logically. So uh, I think I would scratch the hydrated part. Um, but we might say, okay, so now we do get into this biochemical composition. Okay, I'm going to copy the other uh, definition over
Yeah,
here.
we have a couple now in the chat. There's the one from LOD, there's one that Magali put, and then I also found one on ECFR.
Okay. And
I copy and paste this in the document, so in the chat you can
okay,
see
we'll have
later.
a little competition here. No, it's good. It's perfect. It's exactly where we want
I
to.
just want to help. To be...
So, all right.
Oh no, sorry.
So this is the EFSA one, right? Yeah. Okay.
Maybe can you put the provenance somewhere on them too? So
Yeah.
that we like, yeah, because that's kind of important.
Yeah. Food X2. Two. Um, and then is there another definition?
There's two that I put. One is from LOD NAL USDA,
Mhm.
and then one is, yeah, and then the other one is this one. Although I don't know if this one is like the CIFR is not as simple as just a definition. It's like a whole, it's like pages and pages of documentation on what it means to be fresh and whatever. So
Yeah.
may or may not be able to get, but this is the kind of thing that you'd want to reference in the definition for fresh.
Yep. Okay. So this is one step removed from raw. Totally agree. Fresh is a subclass of raw. Um, and you're referring there, Anusha. Okay, so back to this, and back to our sheet. Okay, let's just quickly go over and look for um, so do we have that one in our sheet yet? Okay, we don't. So I'm just going to pop the F subversion in. It's different from that unprocessed. Okay, just pop these all in a new. Okay, and then mm, so I think we'll also be making this distinction about whether raw even applies to all of these materials that are not organism materials. I was thinking that we would just restrain the word raw to apply to organisms. It's kind of weird for me to say to hear the concept of raw salt. It just doesn't really seem to apply to me. Okay, so here's now. Uh, and I think there might be one more. Okay, no, that's it. Raw. Right. Right above. So this is actually from above. And so this is always in contrast to processed. Epsis. Oh, right. Okay. That's it. So, okay, just for the hell of it, I'll pop this in. We may not get to it, but okay, so let's start by modifying this definition. So first of all, are we agreed that raw can include dried, since of course dried peas in the field and so on, dried grains are pretty common. We'd still call them raw. Any objections? If not, I'm going to just scratch that. So characteristic of organisms or parts thereof which have a biochemical composition that closely resembles their harvested or subsequent biologically aged natural state. Right. Okay, so here's a example of why this is written. Um, irradiating food. So milk, well, raw milk can be irradiated, and we would still call it raw. That's why we're saying biochemical composition. That's why we're not mentioning that processes could be applied to it, such as irradiation.
Is that right? Because it sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It sounds which?
that you say raw food has been irradiated.
Right. So,
Like nuts, uh, cashew nuts are irradiated.
mhm,
They are not, they are unroasted,
mhm,
irradiated, but I wouldn't call them raw.
okay.
Yes, because I think we have to think that it is irradiation is a process. It is not a natural process. So I think it doesn't fit with the definition of raw.
Hmm.
Indeed, yes,
Okay.
actually.
That's 2 votes against. Here.
I'm not
But
against.
natural drying, I don't know because in the definition you say is natural is aged natural state. So for example, for legumes you have the immature seeds or the mature seeds, and you have fresh legumes or dried pulses, and it is the same plants. It depends on the harvest stage.
Okay.
But they are both raw products. I mean mature or immature seeds
Okay.
are both raw products unless they are processed.
Look, I'm not going to write an angry letter to the National Post about this, but I'm
Mhm.
just asking a question.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It's good. No, any question that arises here is will arise out in the world, and we need responses to them. So, um, okay. So I'm with you there on the mature, immature. So that's aging, but not decaying. Or do we include decaying in raw as well? Yeah, I
I
think
don't know what you think. Decaying is overripe.
right.
I don't know. It's
Include
about fermented food also,
right.
but we can have some naturally fermented or uh, plant process. We can see fermentation as a plant process or as a natural biological process. It depends on the
Hmm.
way you are using fermentation, because you can have spontaneous fermentation or
Yeah,
directed fermentation.
yeah. Uh, so fermentation,
Fermented, yes.
question mark. Um,
But just like for drying, I think you can have natural drying or artificial drying.
yeah. Mm.
So perhaps we can distinguish the kind of process, and
Yes.
then we have the different characteristic applied to this product.
Yeah. So here may be a guiding principle then. So we don't want to change the way people are using these words out in the world, but inside our ontology, we may actually want to guide the semantics a bit. So it's certainly a comfortable position, I think, and it roughly mirrors our natural language use, that raw encompasses a really general term, and then underneath it and adjacent to it, we can have all these categories. So I'm happy if we have a raw um, encompass both the hydrated and dehydrated um, natural processes, and then um,
But
we,
so I think that we can include decaying in that case because it's a natural process.
yeah. Um, so I don't know if there's terminology around this, but in defining these subcategories, we are capturing useful categories. So
And you already have some kind of drying process in Kaya's document of
yeah,
MIFC document.
yeah, right. We'll have to,
It is naturally sun dried. So for
right.
example,
Sun things may not be in the sun, but they might still be naturally dried. So maybe that needs revision. Sun or shade. Um,
We say sun
Or
or air dried.
air dried.
dark
Okay.
cellar. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Very good.
Apparently you
Right.
can dry stuff in microwaves too, right? Uh,
Yes. I think the key element here is natural because
mm,
somebody is going to argue that sun-dried tomatoes are irradiated, which is true,
mhm,
but putting them into the microwave is something else entirely.
mhm. Okay, and so
Yes, and also with natural, we are aligning with biological processes.
yeah, that's it. So we let this in. We let in drying process, natural or artificial. Yeah, for raw, we can still get into the natural subclasses of raw.
But what do you think? Is something fermented still raw? I
That's
don't think so, but it's not just my opinion.
right.
Well,
So
it depends
I
on your
don't know.
definition of raw, right?
yeah,
Yes,
so we can, as ontologists, we can create sub-definitions, raw, fermented, raw, unfermented, if we want.
but we are saying that in the definition, we are saying that the biochemical composition is close
Identical.
to
Right,
the starting raw material, and I don't think that fermented product have the same composition.
right. That's
So
actually,
that's my point.
yeah. Anyone to disagree with that? I totally agree with that.
So say again.
Say again?
Are we voting on something?
Yes. Whether fermented foods could be considered raw, and it seems they violate the biochemical
Mm.
composition.
I
Of,
would not consider them raw.
yeah,
Well, they are not cooked. So again, it depends on your definition of raw. So if we're going if the biological composition is the definition, then yeah, of course we have to
Yes.
follow the definition.
Forget about the heat treatment because it will be a subclasses. Unheated will be a class subclasses
Well,
right,
you
or
can
a
also think about
specification.
ceviche is acid cooked, so that's not
Yeah,
heat.
agree.
right.
Yes.
Right.
So
So do we have something other than the biological composition to go off of? Do we have any other in all the other definitions and any different ideas, or is this still our best?
I'm thinking it's the best because it's the easy comparator. Uh,
You
And
you
a,
can.
a lot, I'm so sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No. I just want to say to Damien that he has to add also uncooked with unheated
Uncooked, yeah,
because it's not quite the same.
uncooked in. Wasn't USDA using the word not heat treated? Hadn't you guys switched to not using the cooked word?
Yeah, I can't speak for what is or isn't being done at various things in USDA. It's complicated. There's multiple. I think it'd be good to just go off of NAL has definitions up, ECIFR has definitions up.
Mm.
Anything beyond that is not an official. You know what I mean? So it's better to just kind of go off of what's there and official, so you can reference those things and use them as needed. And then what MIFC and USDA, FDC can do is kind of reference food on referencing those things.
Hmm.
Or whatever else you come up with. And then saying we're saying when we say raw, we're meaning this, and FoodOn has a nice little URL to denote what they mean and where they got it
Yeah,
from.
But
yeah,
mm, but I think that we can also have unprocessed, which is much broader than raw even.
yes, we will have unprocessed for sure.
Unprocessed, it's larger scope
But
because
here, just leery of using the word unprocessed because
mm,
then we start listing off what things are allowed for processed.
no, but I mean you should not you say in the unprocessed definition, you say that the raw food has not been subject to any treatment. And when with the raw food,
Yeah, that's why I don't like.
you allow some treatment, some process, but just natural process.
Right, right, right. So F says the definition doesn't apply right here. very, it's not
It's not
meant to
quite,
apply.
yes.
So it's okay to have that, and we'll put that in a different place. Okay.
I just like to jump in and say again,
Hmm?
a lot of these things are anthropological, right? They don't necessarily have a hardcore scientific definition. And I agree that unprocessed is annoying, Damien, but
Oh, no, I'm totally fine with it.
the label of unprocessed is different to what unprocessed does.
Okay. Explain your thought there. Hmm.
Because
Could you
well,
explain just this a little bit, Robert?
you
What do you
remember
mean?
when we had that discussion about unpalatable versus
Mm,
comestible foods. A lot of these things they link into a very specific part of the world and a very specific culture. So you can have two things that are comestible according to two different regions that are completely different.
Mhm.
And so what I would argue, and I'm sorry, Damien, if this is not a very clear-cut answer, a lot of times I think we should have two versions of unprocessed. And you say this is unprocessed. And I think that this is the one reason why I like to having these numbered URIs is we can have two labels for unprocessed with two different definitions,
Exactly.
and they ontologically are useful.
Yep, no, there's no problem. We'll have different numbers. We can have different definitions around process. That's what this sensu idea is beyond just numbering things. We will
Okay.
say which region, which culture, which period of history that term is relevant to. So
But
no
just to
problem.
say, Robert, I think it is not quite the same kind of discussion about comestible or edible or palatable, because this is very subjective, I agree, and cultural also. But as far as process is defined by BFO, you know what is unprocessed.
I agree. I'm sorry. La différence, c'est le mot versus ce que le mot signifie.
Mhm.
So it's
Oui,
two
oui.
different, the thing and the name of the thing are two different things.
You
So
mean in the natural language versus ontologically defined word process?
yes, so the
Okay,
process in itself is something that we can nail down to the ground because it's a series of facts.
okay,
Whereas the label is something that exists within a certain culture that then points to the process.
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I think we can handle that as it comes up. Right now, I am.
I'm just being my pedantic self. Don't mind me.
No, nice.
See, we're coming up at 10 a.m. at 10 o'clock, and no surprise that this
No, this
particular.
is good. This is good. We made really good progress. I'm really happy to
Yeah,
jump in.
yeah. This is realigning all of our thoughts of the past years. I think this biochemical composition at harvest, at point of harvest, is sort of the key indicator, and I think we still do allow processes as long as they don't change that. And that's
Yeah.
one reason why irradiated probably can get in the door. But what we'll have is um, raw sensu natural, for example, which could even raw unprocessed, uh, unprocessed, which would forbid things like irradiated. And we just have to come up with more examples in order to determine what subcategories. This is essentially sensu. Um, what categories need to exist in FoodOn, which MIFC may not even take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, I think once FoodOn has flushed these things out, then MyFC and others can take advantage of them.
Mhm.
But it would be good to pin down at least like the basic raw and then maybe whatever the other definition is. Because I'm guessing there's going to be two or three classes that are like raw and X
Yep,
and cooked and X, fresh and X. And so other ontologies, MyFC can all point to that.
yep.
Yeah.
Great. Yep.
Just to be sure what do you mean? You mean that irradiated could be raw or not? Because I don't understand now what you
Yes,
have added now.
right.
I,
If
I
this,
think we say that it cannot be irradiated in the definition of
Well, it
raw?
depends if the definition is the biochemical process, because irradiation we'd have to test. We don't know if it's affecting the biochemical process or
Okay.
not.
Okay.
Right.
But
So
fermentation does
Yeah,
change
fermentation
things.
we know
Okay.
that's affecting
Okay.
the bio. Yeah.
Fine.
I agree. Not included in raw because it affects the biochemical composition. Irradiated, it's
So like it might be a term like irradiated raw, which is like raw, like the other raw and has been irradiated, something like that.
It's just like frozen and raw and irradiated and raw. I guess it can
Yeah, frozen
exist.
raw. See, freezing does affect biochemical composition, no doubt
Yes.
about it. So I don't think raw straight would be would be allowed.
So
Frozen,
it is fresh frozen,
yes,
not raw.
right. A
Okay.
frozen material is not a raw material.
Right. It might be labeled as frozen raw, but what it actually is fresh frozen.
Mhm. And this is all hinged on this biochemical composition. So I really
Right.
appreciate that. Not
You know, that's a great definition. So why don't FoodOn, you put that out in the world, and then the USDA can point to it. Other organizations can point to it and said, like, it was Damien's fault.
What we can do if we present it is we have all of the other sensus so that it's more clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
All right, let's pick this up next week.
I'd better wrap it up. And yes, good food for next week.
To say that
Thank you.
things at the PTFI to kind of stop their chemical composition in time for analysis purposes. So I don't know if freezing necessarily changes the chemical composition.
Please add any comments around that, around the process that might suggest what kinds of raw you guys see in your system.
Okay.
Yes, and so just to answer Sarah, I think you are right, but wrong at the same time because it depends on the storage time.
It
And
does.
it depends also of the temperature. I guess if you make some freeze drying, you can store the product more stable. The product keeps stable.
And
But
at what
if it is not
temperature?
so well frozen,
Yeah, at what temperature you're freezing also, if it's like minus.
Yes,
80.
and the duration of the storage also and so on. So
Right. Lots of caveats. All right, wonderful. Thank you all.
Okay. Thanks,
you're
folks.
welcome. So see you next week.
Take care, guys.
Next time.
Yeah, great.
Cheers.
Next week.